What is up, guys? We got NotTheWorst here, bringing another Black Desert online video, and today we're taking a look at the new PvE endgame guide for Succession Dark Knight. We've, of course, had several PvE buffs for tons of classes hitting the servers lately, as well as the very large skill add-on revamp that was implemented as well, so it's time to kind of revisit the class overall as a whole and see what our generic changes to the setup in each scenario are going to be. Now, something that's new to this video from my coverage of these in the past is I've now put together this spreadsheet, which I'll share in the description below. It's going to have all of the information we go over in this video, which is marketed to kind of your generic setup for just kind of an overarching what should I use. But it also has specifics, as you can see, for different grind zones. And this particular one is going to be the same workbook for both Succession and Awakening. It's a work in progress as of now, so of course this will continue getting better and better over time. More graphics and things will get added as well. So if you're viewing this video much later than its initial release date, it may look a little nicer than it does in its current state. But all of the information we cover in this video is already in the spreadsheet as of today, so it will all be there for you. You'll also notice, because we have all of these different items for different grind zones, that's not necessarily going to be a one-to-one for this video. I am going to do specific videos for specific grind zones that kind of show some tips and tricks for grinding those areas as well. In future video sets, this is going to be just kind of the end game grind zone in general usage to kind of give you an idea of what end game DK looks like, rather than specific to each individual spot. So with that covered, let's go ahead and jump on in, and we will be starting off with our different crystal setups. So for our crystals, we can take a look at the tab here and what we have now, as of now anyways. We've got several different options here. A generalized PvP option, and then we have Tungrad Ruins, Thunder, Thornwood, Gyfin, Giants, and City of the Dead. The reason that these vary a bit in them is because you have different AP caps for different zones, and you have different things you're trying to do. For instance, Giants has human damage, human type mobs, therefore applying additional human damage once you reach the AP cap can be used to actually get even more damage beyond that very restrictive 5% AP cap. So that can be incredibly useful for getting some extra damage out of the mobs that are there. In general, what you're going to be using if you're not trying to grind a specific spot and you're not exactly sure what to run and you just want to try it out, you would want to use something along the lines of what we see for our Tungrad Ruins setup. This is going to be kind of your generic, with the exception that you will change out these Mysterious Darkness for Corrupted Crystals, and that would be your general usage. In all honesty, Suck DK, even at Tungrad Ruins, can benefit from Corrupted Crystals than the Mysterious Darkness crystals in some scenarios, but that's for another video. So this is what you'd want to run is if you're not really calcing specifically, you're not worried about AP caps, and you just want to jump in and start grinding somewhere when it's an endgame zone and not really a mid-game zone with DK. So 2 Rebellious Spirit Crystals, pretty standard for basically any PvE setup, as are 2 Glorious Awcrads as well. We'll have 2 Corrupted Crystals in these slots here. Then we're going to have 2 Jin Vipers, just to make sure our accuracy is covered. A Dark Red Fang Crystal Valor here to give us our crit to make sure we're maxed out when we're buffed correctly. Then we have a set of Macalods there, giving us quite a bit of AP gain there, as well as some stamina accuracy to boot on top of it. Crystal of Brutal Decimation gives us an additional 7 AP each, as well as 1% each of our back attack. And then a Giron's Tear, if we don't have that, and you have maybe a Bong Wong's Tear, you can run that instead. Or if you have maybe a Giron's Crystal that you want to put in that slot temporarily till you get your tier, then that's definitely what you can run. So that's going to be kind of your overall setup for your crystals. And then, of course, if you want to look for a specific spot, then split into what that spot is and use that crystal set instead. Things that vary. Other than just like the Giant's human damage, you'll see that we do favor the Mysterious Darkness at Gyfin. We also have some additional attack speed in there, along with Olakis, mostly because we don't need the accuracy crystals there. I did note that your mileage may vary with your hit rate. This is going to depend on your gear. You might be in a situation where at Gyfin you actually do need those Vipers in there, or Elcars or what have you, to get that additional accuracy, and that's totally fine. Drop some Olakis for those. These are just a little bit of a kind of win more there to get a little extra percentage. So the spot that you're grinding is going to depend on what you want to run, and then what's even more important there is going to be making sure you check your gear that you're running to ensure that you are hitting the the accuracy rate that you need to be to make sure your skills are actually landing, and then B, hitting the AP caps as best as you can, and then C, in some zones like the Elvia zones, for instance, don't really want to be dumping more AP into going past those AP caps because there's not really much of a return at that point. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at our Lightstones. Right, our Lightstones are what I most wanted to talk about because gone are the days where we talk about insert air quotes here, best in slot Lightstone set. That's no longer a thing. And the reason for that is because previously Succession Dark Knight basically required the Deathblow set in order to unlock its maximum potential. Reason for that is your hardest hitting skill used to be critical hit Wheel of Fortune outside of a fully charged Comma Slash, which you very rarely would use in PvE. So for all functionality purposes, a critical hit Wheel of Fortune was the hardest hitting skill, and without your Deathblow set, you would only get 88% critical hit rate, which was a huge detriment to your overall DPS. That also impacts other skills that aren't 100% critical hit rate as well, things like Twilight Dash, etc. That's not the case anymore thanks to the new add-on changes that were implemented. So now all classes have access to 100% uptime on the critical hit rate plus 30%. This brings any of your skills that are 50% base PvE crit rate, like Wheel of Fortune as we're using this example, that's going to bring them up to 98% without the use of any other Lightstones. The 98% is not 100%. This is true, so you won't crit 2% of the time that you are using those skills. That is actually true. However, the extra damage we can pick up in other sets, depending on where we're grinding, is going to allow us some more flexibility and overall give us more DPS than running that Deathblow set. That being the case, that means you want to kind of get away from the line of thinking of, oh, this is the set that I run best in slot for Succession DKPD. It's really not true, and it really does vary based on the grind zone that you're at. I did include some generic ones, which this video is just kind of covering the generic usage. Again, not delving into specifics at specific spots for it. And in that scenario, it's typically going to be Vicious Shadows, or in some cases, all-out attack can be beneficial as well. AP caps obviously matter to some extent here, but Vicious Shadows isn't extremely expensive if you already have a strike, not a Stike Stone. You've already got one. If not, you're going to need one someday. Anyways, all-out attack is going to be quite a bit more cumbersome to come by since you need 2 of those strike stones there as well. And also your defense is going to matter in some cases. Let's say you're just getting into Tungrad Ruins. I'm not going to recommend you start learning that space with an all-out attack set put on, getting that negative 15 DR. The evasion is mostly irrelevant for that. So you'll see at other spots, a lot of the times the Wilds is going to be preferable here because you're getting extra damage. These are spots like Giants where you're hitting AP cap and then you want to maximize damage beyond the cap, so obviously human damage helps there. Gyphon, which only has a 70% AP cap but is Comma Sylvian damage, does benefit from the Wild quite a bit. Vicious Shadows is an okay second runner up there, but this one does out DPS Vicious Shadows for that spot. You can see Thornwood, we want that Comma Sylvia damage. City of the Dead, thanks to its new unique mechanics with the knockdown feature, we want to maximize the down attack damage there, which is why Crocodile's Tooth really shines. The City of the Dead can actually be set up to where you one-shot with a Comma Slash if you meet certain requirements there. But again, we'll cover that in the specific video for City of the Dead. So anyways, if you're not sure what to run, you're just trying the class out, you don't want to commit to some other sets that you don't have yet, I recommend going for Vicious Shadows. If you're trying other classes, you already have an all-out attack set, you could just throw that on. You'd be mostly okay for just kind of getting a feel for that. So now that we've talked a little bit about the add-ons with the critical hit rate implementation and how those have changed, let's go ahead and take a look at the add-ons and see what's going to be changed from previous videos. All right, so for add-ons, the neat thing is after the revamp of the add-ons, you can't really screw up your add-ons. And what I mean by that is you're in a position where when you're doing a skill rotation, and if you want that skill rotation to be seamless, you're going to have 100% uptime on every add-on that you want in a PvE scenario. So it's just kind of hedging which ones go where based on what your skill rotation is. As I always say in these videos, it's really important that your skill add-ons line up with your skill rotation. You want to be using specific buffs that are going to be more important to you in the beginning of your skill rotation, so that's where you want to put those add-ons on. And then as they go further out, the ones that are less important. In some scenarios, you may want to favor ones that have lower cooldowns if you move from a pack to pack very quickly. Maybe you're at a mid-game zone where you don't use a full skill rotation and that sort of thing. So taking a look, what this video is targeted for are just generic PvE. We have critical hit rate and attack casting speed on our airstrike. We're going to get this very early in our combo. That's also going to be used if you're moving from a pack to another pack. Using that skill, you have those two really important add-ons up virtually right away. Lunacy of Vidir has accuracy rate on it as well as attack casting speed. As a refresh there. Lunacy is typically a closer type skill in most skill rotations, as it is sort of in the one that we're going to be using today, so you'll see that in a little bit later. It also has the lowest accuracy modifier along with Twilight Dash at only 5% rate, so putting the accuracy bonus on that one does make sense. You might not need that and could replace it with something else if you're hitting 100% rate without it. It's just something extra to have in case you need it. Ravage Rake, we have extra AP against monsters and DP minus 20 applied on there. Wheels got the extra AP against monsters as well as critical hit rate 30% on it. We see 20 DP and 5% back attack damage on Twilight Dash. More so just something to fill the gap. The back attack makes a ton of sense since we're usually using Twilight Dash for positioning anyways. And then we have the pretty standard DP minus 20 on Spirit Legacy, as well as the critical hit damage plus 5% on here as well. So this is going to give you 100% uptime on all of these skills while you're using it. It's just a matter of what orientation you're using them or in what order. So you can kind of tweak that to how you like it based on your skill rotation. This is just what's going to be tied in for what we are using in our skill rotation. So with that said, let's go into our skill rotation and take a look at what it's going to look like. All right, so let's talk the skill rotation that's going to tie in nicely with these add-ons. There are going to be some optimizations you can do both just individually for yourself and also as if you're checking out the spreadsheet for specific spots that are being utilized instead. So these can, of course, be tweaked. What we're going to cover here is just a generic one you can kind of use as you're getting a feel for DK that could potentially be applied anywhere, and a spot like this would actually, or a rotation like this would actually work perfectly for a spot like Hex, which is not too much in the means of mechanics or utilizing certain skills in certain places. So just something to note there. So we'll have that up on the screen so you can look, and of course you can always check the spreadsheet individually, which is provided. So we'll walk through this if you are not familiar with DK, because some of these things are second nature if you are. But first thing is we're going to lead off with our Twilight Dash. This is just a great engage. You can see the distance that's applied there. Damage is pretty nice for it as well. And it's going to give us positioning so that we have nice back attacks. Now, when you're using Twilight Dash, our skill Kama Sylvia Slash, you can use at any time while you're in that by pressing the right mouse button, and it is very heavy damage for the amount of time it takes, which is instantaneous. So we're going to do that, which is going to set us up really nicely for pack engagement with while applying very good damage. Then we're just going to go ahead and use Unveiled Dagger, which is going to give us our nice little attack speed buff for the rest of our rotation. So that we're set up. We'll go into Airstrike and hold that to go into the Vidir Strike, which also applies very heavy damage. We're going to throw a quick Slanted Balance before Spirit Legacy, and then use a quick cast right after Spirit Legacy into that Blooming Black Rose. That skill individually is pretty slow, and in higher damage monster zones will just get you killed. This is what it looks like if you goof and don't use the quick cast. So yeah, that's not great. It does have some interactions with several skills. Close range, a couple examples would be Kama Slash, Spirit Legacy, and Wheel of Fortune all have that same quick cast interaction. It also has a ranged cast interaction that you might find useful other places. You can use one of the Rabam skills, Shadow Strike, and then you can range it from there, or you can do that with Shadow Bullet as well. But for this rotation, we're just using the quick cast off of Spirit Legacy. That's because we're going to have heavy DP debuff applied to the mobs at that point, and the damage on a quick cast Blooming Black Rose is very high DPS. It has really, really good damage. The next thing we're going into is Ravage Rake, and this is again because of the interaction that occurs. So we can Spirit Legacy, Blooming Black Rose quick cast, and the transition into Ravage Rake, which you'll note has 4 separate swings there, is very fast when you come off of your Blooming Black Rose. So super, super great to go ahead and use at that point instead of sticking it somewhere else, since it's about as fast as you can get that interaction to occur. Then we're going to use our bread and butter Wheel of Fortune directly into Lunacy of Vidir, and then that chains into Nocturne, which you can see there. So if you're on PC, you press Shift RMB, and you're going to hold that RMB, which puts you into Nocturne, and then we immediately are going to use Dark Execution, and the input for this on PC, sorry console guys, I'm not sure what the input on this after the Nocturne is going to be A. It's an unprotected attack, but it deals the most damage in PvE. You do have other options after Nocturne. There's a Lingering Super Armor if you use the forward animation, and there's also a CC if you use the D animation, but since we're in PvE, we're not going to be using CCs, so not most of the time anyway, so you won't be using that. We just wanted to apply the damage, so that's going to be the left option when you do that. From there, we're going to put in Unveiled Dagger. This is not necessarily needed because you should actually still have the attack speed buff up again. This is going to be more so for positioning in case when you use that Nocturne, you get out of position on the mobs. You'll find that that happens, or maybe you just kind of misjudged where you were trying to put it, or maybe you have aim assist on and you got put somewhere wonky where you didn't want to. Over time, you'll just see this happen from time to time if you're not fully paying attention. So we throw that in there just to get us repositioned on the mobs, just in case you need it. You might not, in which case you can totally skip it. And then we're just going to clean up with our Pervasive and the Flow on it. So you see 2 hits there. And then Enforcement, which flows into Determination, 2 more hits there. So that's going to complete the skill rotation from top to bottom. So I'll just run through it once real quick so that you can take a look at all of it. So there you go. So that's top to bottom. Now, something to note that I did include on the spreadsheet, if you see, is that if you're on your E or Z buff, depending on how you have your attack speed set up, and also really heavily dependent on your FPS setup, you may burn through these skills a slightly quicker than you want to, especially on that E and Z buff. And notably, it's going to be Blooming Black Rose. The reason for that is this rotation is designed to be seamless for you so that you can start from top to bottom, rinse and repeat. And then over time, you'll kind of develop your own style with it and get more towards just cooldown management rather than sticking to a 1, 2, 3, 4 bread and butter combo. That Blooming Black Rose is the 10-second cooldown, which is the longest one out of our skill rotation that we're using. So if that happens or you're on your E or Z buff, you have plenty of skills that you can put just using any one of them to kind of fill in the space for you right at the end of that rotation. Will work nicely so that you'd only have to put in one every other rotation, or you can just stick one in at the end of the rotation. There's plenty of options there, but a few that you could decide to use. Again, the Rabam skill Shadow Strike, which is Shift X, but I like to hotkey it. You can throw that in, and it has a nice little magic DP buff for you as well, so that might actually be a little helpful for you on there. We also have the other Rabam skill that you're going to use, Unveiled Fate. This one applies the same attack speed buff that Unveiled Dagger does, and then it also has a very weak Wheel of Fortune afterwards. So it's kind of like using Unveiled into Wheel if you wanted to. And you can also use Corrupt Ground. This has really heavy HP regen. It has MP regen too, which doesn't super apply for people with infinite HP potions, but it's really nice HP regen. Just has a super long cooldown. Also has a really high accuracy modifier to note. So any of those skills, if you for whatever reason find that your cooldowns aren't lining up after your attack speed buffs are applied, can be used at that point. Kind of your call for what you want to do. Speaking of the Rabam skills, just to kind of cover what we are using in this setup, we have in PvE, there's not a ton of flexibility for options here. Shadow Strike's just incredibly useful because, as you've seen, you have these ranged interactions, and it has a nice little magic DP plus 15 buff, which can help you out. Then we use Unveiled Fate. 2 reasons for this. One, because in the past, the Unveiled Dagger buff actually didn't last for 10 seconds. It would only last for 5 seconds. I can relate, like Saturday nights with your mom. So we used to use this in place when the cooldown was available. You can see an 18-second cooldown. It takes a long time for it to get back up. That's what she said. But we now have that available in Unveiled Dagger, so it's a little less appealing there, but does have its usefulness from time to time since it also applies a DP debuff. We have that option with Spirit Legacy, but it's not incredibly non-useful. So Balanced Strike is also selected here, mostly because Slanted Slash is incredibly unappealing, and also Balanced Strike gives you a second airstrike essentially, so very good pack-to-pack movement and just closing the gap on different things. The damage is nothing like airstrike and Dividir Strike is whatsoever, and it has an insanely long cooldown. However, it is kind of nice to get that extra movement whenever you do need it, so it's available to you should you want to use it. So there you have it for the skill rotation tied in with the add-ons that we had. I want to just reiterate, as you kind of make it your own or move more towards cooldown management rather than bread and butter skill rotations, make sure that you're adjusting your add-ons accordingly. Again, not as important as it used to be since the new add-on buffs, but you want to make sure they tie in so that your more important add-ons are at the beginning of your rotation. So as you mix and match your skills around for what feels comfortable for you, make sure you adjust your add-ons too, and don't leave them the way they are before, so that you're making sure you're optimizing your specific combo. So that's gonna be it for this video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to like it. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you get notifications when new videos go live. And if you'd like to catch me playing live, there's a link to my Twitch page in the description down below. Jump on over there, drop a follow so you get notifications for that as well. With that said, that's gonna be it for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I will see you next time.